the kitchen, so it doesn't really work. Sir.
I have a question, but it's about a different topic. It's more about the possibility of Iran having nuclear weapons and how that will affect not only Israel but us as well, because we are allies. You could just
Sure.
explain that, please.
The factor is it doesn't matter who would have a nuclear weapon. What matters is two things about nuclear weapons. It's a matter of having the weapon itself and the delivery system. When you put the two of them together, you have a very dangerous combination. When you have it in the hands of someone with the attitude that if they place a bomb on themselves or on their children and are willing to blow themselves up with dynamite to, let's say, blow up this room, then you can only imagine what that kind of mindset would do if they had a destructive device like a nuclear weapon. What Iran has is Iran has the components, and they're moving towards the direction of probably acquiring a device. Now, there's two other things that have to go with that. It has to go with the intent of whether or not, well, the technical step of having a device that works. Because when you have a nuclear device, you ever hear around the world when they have nuclear tests? So we'll know they have one when they test one, because the time to test one is not when you use one. Okay, so that's the first thing there. So we do have time. A lot of the rhetoric that's being put out there is cause for concern. The other thing is that in the days of, you guys studied the days of the Cold War, when there was the powers of the East and the West. What was the acronym? Mutual Assured Destruction. You guys haven't learned that yet? That means that both sides were at a standstill, because if one launched theirs, the others would launch theirs, and both sides and everyone else in the middle would be mutually assured of destruction. The difference and that kept us at a standstill. The difference here is that we're dealing with one side who wants to be destroyed. They believe, the particular mystics that we're talking about in Iran, the Ayatollahs, have a mystical view that if they push the world to nuclear annihilation, that their Mahdi, their Messiah, their God will come and fix everything. And so that they have a prophetic role. So this is the kind of mindset that we have to have. So when you're a diplomat doing diplomatic negotiation, you have to know the mindset of your opponent, right? You have to know where their head is at. So it's not so much that they will have a nuclear device, but what would they do with it if they did? And so this is where the cause of concern comes. So naturally, we would have to, from a national security standpoint, it would not be a good idea for any opponent with that kind of mindset, self-destructive mindset, to have that kind of weaponry. Now, we do have the technology. The good news is, and I want you to check this out. Remember this name, General Daniel Graham. General Daniel Graham. He was the deputy director of the CIA. I used to be his bodyguard. He was the father of SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative. And this was the guys who put together the technology that we had back in the 80s, 90s, and we have today, of missile defense. What missile defense does is basically puts on a bulletproof vest, okay? So where it would render, even if someone had a nuclear device and a means of delivering it, it gives us a means of detecting it through satellites, because the radioactivity of a nuclear device has an isotope signature that you can actually see from space where it's coming from, where it's going. So that's, we'll know how to fix that real quick, right? And what missile defense does is that if they use a missile as a delivery system, what missile defense does is that it stops a missile or ballistic missile in its trajectory at its most vulnerable apex, okay? And so we have the ability to shoot it down. Most people don't realize that, remember this, that a nuclear bomb is not really a bomb. It's a device. It's a complicated machinery like a stereo system. And if you dropped it on the ground, it would break. And if you hit it with enough static energy or kinetic energy, it would just simply break up and fall apart and be destroyed. So we do have means through strategic missile defense. And I believe that the United States of America should deploy missile defense systems in that region where we have the ability to shoot it down. I'll give you an example. It's a very good question he's asking, and I'm sorry if it goes on, but let me just give you an example. Take a look at the map, at a map of the world, right? You see the longitudes and latitude lines? Picture one of those squares like a window, all right? Now, make it a grid around the globe, right? So let's say a missile has to come out of a certain landmass. So it has to come out of that window. Well, if we have satellites that are programmed to basically watch that window, and if anything came flying out of that window that's not supposed to be flying out of that window, we have one stage of events that would throw kinetic energy. And the kinetic energy would basically, because it's moving at a certain speed, and something else gets like a ball in a baseball bat, right? What happens when a ball and a baseball bat meet, right? So the same thing would happen. It would be destroyed there. Let's say it got through that, and it got into the atmosphere. Well, we have land-based and we have sea-based systems that can guide it magnetically, right? That it would be attracted to it like a magnet and also take it down. Then we have also land-based systems and air-based systems like a fighter jet that can also shoot it. When you add those layers of defenses, now all of a sudden the prospect of having a nuclear weapon is really obsolete, because what's the sense of having all these nuclear weapons if you have no way to deliver it? And if you do have a way to deliver it and it doesn't hit your target, can you imagine the telephone call from President Anthony Mele? Oh, excuse me, Ayatollah, was that a missile you just shot at me a minute ago? Yeah, that one. We had a nuclear warhead on it? Oh, you know you missed. You know you missed, right? That's not good. Ah, good night. In other words, it would turn around and would make that as a strategic weapon void. It wouldn't work. Then we have to do something else.
So what you're saying that currently we don't have the missile defense in that region currently, or that's something that is classified that we probably don't know?
Well, in the days when I was working in the Pentagon, those were classified things. I obviously I can't divulge those things, but I can tell you this: if you look up what General Daniel Graham was talking about. General Daniel Graham and President Reagan decided that we would share that technology with the Soviet Union, because what it would do is that it would give the other side then the excuse of not making any more missiles to try and beat it. So if you were worried about us shooting our missiles at you, we'll give you the ability to shoot our missiles down as well. Then that would put us down at a zero balance, and then therefore now we would have to, if we had differences, we would have to hammer them out at the negotiating table before we put our young men and women to war. And that's a big difference when you have to work it out at the negotiating table. It's better that, Winston Churchill said, it's better that we jaw before we war. So we do have the technology deployed in Poland, or it was deployed in Poland. This administration signed the New START treaty with the Russians, and in that treaty we removed those missile defense batteries, which I disagree with. I believe that we should have. It's the same thing as turning around and telling police officers to take off your bulletproof vest because it would offend bank robbers. So I believe that a strong defense is also a strong defense. And for the cost of it, by the way, is at minimal cost to have these kind of systems put into place, because we have the technology and we already have the network in place. The same network that's communication satellites are the same network that can detect whether a missile is launched in our direction. That help you?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.